Waycross presents an election forum for Greenhills Village Council. There are 4 candidates running for 3 open positions. The candidates are, in alphabetical order, Pat Antoine, Melanie K. Hermes, Jack Lee, Jennifer Osmanoglu.
Welcome to another Waycross election forum here at Waycross Community Media. This forum is for candidates for Village of Greenhills Council. I'm Dana Gagnon, Government Programming Coordinator here at Waycross, and I have 3 candidates in the studio here. I have Pat Antoine, I have Melanie Hermes, and I have Jack Lee. Jennifer Osmanoglu was scheduled to participate but was unable to attend for medical reasons. And we're going to start with each candidate's 2-minute opening statement. But before we do that, I want to take a minute to say, if you are watching this program live on October 14th, then you can be part of it. You can email me your question for the candidates, send them to live@waycross.org, and I will get them right here in the studio, and I can ask the candidates your questions. Now, there's a couple rules for those questions, so let's cover those quickly. First, you must be a Greenhills resident to ask questions to these Greenhills candidates. So because of that, we need you to put your name and your address in the email with the question. Now, I'm not going to read your last name or your address on the air. It's just how we ensure that the questions we ask are really coming from the residents of Greenhills. Now, the other rule is that questions must be for all candidates and not directed at one in particular. Okay, now we covered that. Let's get started with our 2-minute opening statements, and we will start with you, Pat.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to finally be here once again. I have to admit, I have run for office in Greenhills in 2007, 2009 for mayor, 2011. Now, in 2011, just 6 days before the election, Hilltop News actually chose me as the candidate of choice for Village Council, which was quite an honor. So then I was in my neighborhood watching a tree being cut down, and the next thing I know, here comes a police officer, and I get arrested, and he calls for backup. All I was doing is watching a tree get cut. So needless to say, this is my first time that I've made it this far without being arrested and falsely arrested, strip searched, and put in jail. So we've got a new police officer running things, so I hopefully can make it the next few days. But it was quite an honor to be a candidate of choice, and I believe that this year it's going to happen again. I want to thank everybody that has already visited. I've got 2 Facebook pages. One is called Greenhills, or it's called Greenhills on the Record. And on there, I post a lot of the public records that I have collected over the years, and they're very interesting. There's ethics complaints, there are management letters on audits for noncompliance. So the Facebook page that's got the most activity, and right now I've had over 600 people involved, is Pat Antoine for Greenhills Council. And I just am so thrilled to have the media to help out this year. So if everyone will just keep in mind, if you vote early, cast 1 vote for Pat Antoine. That way it assures that I will be able to make it in to be your voice on council. These people are going to come back one way or the other, and they've been here forever. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Melanie, you're next.
Good evening, or good night, since it is very close to my bedtime. I am Melanie K. Hermes, and I am currently a council member for the Village of Greenhills, and I'm up for re-election. Much has changed since I sat here last 8 years ago. I was elected to council, I had a baby, I got married, so I am still excited to be here. I love Greenhills. I am your neighbor. In fact, my Brokaw grandparents moved onto Chalmers Lane in 1943 across from my mother-in-law's family. The Brokaw family has been represented here ever since. I cherish my childhood memories growing up in Greenhills, and I want to help ensure good childhood memories for generations to come. I am presently employed as the HR Director for Delhi Township on the west side of Hamilton County. The forms of government are different, but the issues are the same. Serving residents, including the business community and visitors, interacting with employees, including police and fire personnel, and volunteers, and providing basic government functions. I am an attorney. My education includes undergraduate and graduate degrees in business along with my law degree. My husband and I grew up in Greenhills. We fell in love in Greenhills. We got married in Greenhills, and we are raising our daughter in Greenhills. Greenhills incorporates a sense of community and continuity. We enjoy being able to walk to the library, dinner, and activities on the commons. My name is Melanie K. Hermes, and I am asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Dana. Dana, I'm a 40-year resident of Greenhills. My wife Holly and I moved here in 1983. We raised our two children, Diana and Rob, in the village. Have found Greenhills to be a wonderful place to raise a family. And now that we're empty nesters, a great place to just be. And we enjoy ourselves immensely. We enjoy our neighborhood. Certainly Junedale Drive is the best street in Greenhills, and we are very proud of that. I recently retired at the end of January, and I now work part-time at a local business. I serve as chair of the Finance Committee on the Village Council. Along with Ms. Osmanoglu, I am a council rep for the Village Planning Commission. I hope to have your vote on November 2nd for re-election. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I will say, even though Ms. Osmanoglu is not here in the studio, she was able to record her 2-minute opening statement, so we'll take a look at that now.
My name is Jennifer Osmanoglu. I'm running for Greenhills Village Council. I wish I could be at the community forum, but I have tested positive for COVID, so I will not be in attendance. I've lived at Greenhills for 12 years. I like the quality of life here, and I would like to see that continued through increased cooperation and communication between the residents, property owners, and village officials. I'd like for all of us to integrate new ideas and developments that respect the history of Greenhills and the ideals of our residents. I appreciate the history of Greenhills. I have one of the original houses of Greenhills. I think that our residents respect why this village was built, and we need to keep that. But keeping that in mind, we also need to move forward and have ideas to attract younger residents, new residents that care about our community as much as we do. We want to maintain quality of life that we like. I love the walking paths and the trees, and the maintenance department is vital for that. Our police department and our fire department is vital to keep our safety and our nice community. We need to support them. I would also like to see Greenhills continue to be economically balanced and sensibly managed while supporting our community needs. I've worked with the public for 30 years in a management and in a service capacity. I've had cooperation with all types of people. I have mutual respect for everyone I work with. And I would like to see more of this respect, honesty, and integrity continue throughout my time on council. I hope that you will consider me as your candidate, and I look forward to serving Greenhills. Thank you.
Okay, now that we've had a chance to hear all of your 2-minute opening statements, we can get started with questions. And our time is going to pass really quickly, so let's get started with kind of one big picture question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer this question. We'll start with you, Ms. Hermes. And what I'd like to know is, what do you think are the top 2 issues facing Greenhills today?
I would say the top two issues facing Greenhills would be the continuation of being a family-friendly community, and also, of course, keeping the exceptional police department and safety committed to the village. As many Greenhills youngsters did, I worked at the pool and the golf course growing up, and while it's sad that the golf course has gone away, it is looking to be a phenomenal park, and I am looking forward to that and the growth of that for many years to come for different future activities. We've even talked about maintaining the sledding hill, as we all did growing up. So I'm looking forward to that and the growth in the recreation in that area. Our law enforcement is CLIA accredited, which means they're a nationally accredited law enforcement agency in the United States. And Chief Filterman does an excellent job of training his police officers. If anyone was listening to the previous forum, we do have a problem with retention and right now, and that's hard when right now trying to keep being fiscally responsible, but also to retain good employees, and that's not just in our police department, but it's also in all of our departments, keeping qualified personnel working so that they are able to give good service to the residents.
Okay, great. Thank
you.
Mr. Lee.
I want to reiterate what Melanie talked about, more along the lines of quality life issues that village government is involved in. The police and fire, streets and services, and doing that in a responsible way, maintaining a balanced budget, which we do. It's an audited budget, I might add. But the second issue that goes along with the park is really keeping a focus that this council has had on the area on or around the shopping center. That is the center of the community that was done on purpose when the Greenbelt facilities were built in the 30s, and to really increase the viability of that facility and the area around it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Ms. Anwan.
Well, two major goals. There's actually a lot of things that fall into these major goals. And I would start out by saying accountability with transparency and communications is kind of the cornerstone. The Ohio Ethics Commission has set out guidelines for how public officials are supposed to conduct themselves in terms of spending money and of doing favors and bribes, all those kinds of things. And it appears that through, at least since 1975 forward, ever since Mr. Moore came on board, there's been a real sticky wicket, let's put it that way, with some of these nepotism things, and we just had someone indicate that they took advantage of that because her mother was working there for the village. But that goes deeper and deeper into conflicts of interest that's gone on forever. Communication, we are now limited to 3 minutes at the council meeting, and the mayor is extremely rude to tell people to stop, and they will not answer any questions, which I think that needs to be improved. The transparency would come through a performance audit. It's not the same thing as the audit he's talking about. I've already posted the management letters from those with all the non-compliance that Miss Brokaw's mother didn't seem to be able to follow.
It's Hermes, but
Miss Brokaw Hermes. High taxes. We have the highest taxes in all of Hamilton County. A performance audit would help us tighten the belt and see where we are overstaffed or where we can be efficient. We have 4 police levies now. We need to stop this conflict of interest and bias at the courts. I'm asking for fair taxes, and the Board of Revision knows that there is a problem with assessing taxes in Greenhills. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, and so that takes it. We do have some questions coming in. Let's take a look and see. Our next question starts with you, Mr. Lee, just so you
Okay.
know. And what I would like to, some of these questions get covered as we're talking about other things. So I'm trying not to duplicate. We have such a limited amount of time here. One viewer would like to know, of course, we know that besides your race on the ballot, there's also a mayoral race on the ballot, and there are 3 candidates for that. So my question is, can you talk about your comfort level working with various different people? Do you have any difficulties or excitement or reasons to look forward to working with? You have a whole different council of different people to work with, and so this viewer would like to know, just if you're ready, this is just a 1 minute in a nutshell question, if you are comfortable working with the different people that are part of this council already. And we're going to start with you, Mr. Lee.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think that's very important based upon the most recent answer given by another candidate, is that it is extremely important to be able to work with other people. It is extremely important not to shout people down, to say things that are contrary to reality, to make statements that are patently false. And you've got to be able to work with people to get to the truth and be productive. And this council has been, and I hope that it will continue to be. Thank you.
Great. And as I press the right buttons on here to keep track of your time, as I come back here. Okay, now I'm ready. Ms. Antoine.
Yes, I have attended many, many council meetings since 2007. That's when I worked with Dave Moore on rehabbing a lot of the townhouses that he invested $8.5 million in, with only $1 million of it being voted. With that said, after he accumulated all of this monopoly game, we've had these folks vote to tear it down. And so currently we only have not even, well, let's say they tore down and demolished 27.5% of what was there. So my question is, if you don't question the people on the Hill and they refuse to answer, you get the same junk in, junk out, and people are afraid to talk to them. I gave people a ticket that says admit one. That means, by golly, when I'm on council, we want to hear from everyone and we want to get along and make sure that all of our goals are met. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Hermes.
I think civility is important. It's important to be able to talk to anyone, but it's also important to have a little bit of a tough skin when people are calling you names. And that happens. You sit there on council and you're giving your time, and yes, it is a paid position. We do get paid $2,000 per year for this position, so it isn't really a volunteer position, but you do have to be civil when people are flat out calling you names while you're doing your job. And so keeping a tough skin and making sure to be polite are very important. So being able to work with someone, other people are something I'm proud that I'm able to do. And I guess that's the most important thing. And I guess I'm the shortest answerer in all of us, so I apologize. But yes, being civil and keeping a tough skin for when people call you names.
Great, thank you. Thank you for answering that. That was a question that came in via email. Folks that are watching this live on October 14th have been able to email me their questions live at waycross.org. If you're watching this on another day, don't email me questions. Contact the candidates directly to get your questions answered at that point. Let's take a question in another direction. I would like to, and let's see, it looks like we start with you again, Pat.
Sure.
This next question, of course, Greenhills has a history, but Greenhills has also got future families moving in, and that's something to balance. So how can the village balance preserving the history of the village while also meeting the needs of future residents? And I'll do 2 minutes for this.
Okay, thank you. I'll tell you, we really hadn't heard of Greenhills until 1976 when we sold our house. And we were looking for a place to relocate with our, then we only had 2 little boys. And we actually walked to the home of Miss Hermes, well, it would be her mother-in-law's parents. This is where Peggy grew up. And that's where I live, on Chalmers Lane at 32. I wanted to make sure that everyone knows where I live, how they can get in touch with me, that they can stop by or give me a call. And it's just that I think that we need to be moving forward together. Now, would you restate exactly where you were questioning?
Sorry, I'm catching. I've got emails
Okay.
coming in from our viewers at the same moment.
Yeah, that's okay.
But yes, my question is, I'll pause here. My question is just balancing the history of the past, but with the needs of the future.
Okay. Well, the history in my neighborhood is in 2017, these 2 people voted to tear down 26 homes in my neighborhood. So that was part of the National Historic District, which we had just spent years trying to get the Department of Interior to approve. So we've had all this debt, $8.5 million, with only $1 million of it voted, but all this reckless behavior. Where can we go from now? When I was working for the village, it was a thrill to rent to people and get them started in a new community because I was a cheerleader for this community. I still am. I went to a New Deal preservation forum out in Berkeley, California, and it was recognized for my efforts at preservation. Yes, indeed, we should be proud of who we are. We should pull up our vision, our promise, our potential, and move forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Hermes.
Yes, I do think getting new people in and keeping the old people in are both extremely important ideas and concepts to keep. I will say that I really, when I talk about Greenhills, sometimes people say I tell the most uninteresting facts, but I find it very fascinating that we were one of the 3 Greenbelt communities, the only one that still has our Greenbelt surrounding us, that we actually live in Winton Woods. It's a little bit of a Brigadoon kind of situation in my feelings of it. And I think it's a great place to live, and I think it's great to celebrate the history, but it's also great to look forward to the future. Having family-friendly activities, it would be great. We had the fall activity on the Commons a couple weekends ago. We have Light Up Greenhills coming. These are great family-friendly activities. We had movies that were behind Malloy's in the picnic area. These are great ways to bring the community involved. They had Cooking with the Cops. The Greenhills pool has great activities for families. So I think having recreational activities for families is very important, but also realizing that nowadays families work. So having them in the evenings and the weekends are great opportunities, but also celebrating the history, celebrating why Greenhills was built, why Greenhills is what it is, and that we still have our green belt, that we still are surrounded. I know sometimes we have those little thermostats on our cars. When I drive into Greenhills, sometimes I'm looking at it and it seems to drop two degrees when you go in Winton Woods because of the green belt. And it could just be the times I'm looking at it. It's not a scientific study, but I still think it's kind of quaint that when you come into Greenhills, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lee.
I think history is amazingly important, and if you look at the 3 Greenbelt communities that were built pretty much all at the same time, I really believe that Greenhills is probably closest to being of the original idea. When you look at Greenbelt, Maryland, its population is 10 times that of Greenhills. Very commercialized, and obviously within the Washington D.C. Metropolitan area. Greendale, Wisconsin, is probably the closest, but there again, it's a very large community in relation to us. So protecting the green belt around Greenhills is vitally important, and I don't think that there's anyone on council or within the village government that does not feel that way. And to make criticisms that somehow, when we were looking at buildings that were deteriorating to the point that they were only being held up by the plaster inside the buildings, as some sort of hallmark of historic importance, being a nuisance with kids hanging out there. I think we acted responsibly, regardless of what others may think. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now, I already see that we have more questions than we have time. I'm going to see if I can combine a question here, and thank you for sending them in. And this is basically about economic development, responding to the difficulty of the center, of course, and the center is not owned by the village. It's got a separate owner, so dealing with that. But also, in general, the tax base of Greenhills in general that funds. This time we start with you, Ms. Hermes. I'm going to give it 1 minute because we have to do rapid fire round at this point. So if there's anything that you just want to sort of add, responding to the economic development of Greenhills, we'll go there.
Economic development is based on the market. It is something that I wish, as government, we could force people to open up in the Greenhills Shopping Center. I wish we could pull people in. We all have little niches that we wish we had. So that being said, if there's something you're interested in, talk to people, bring it up, mention it. If you want it, let people know, because, and it's not, yes, us on council, but it's also let the people at the village, at the shopping center know what you were interested in buying. I know I like hitting the citrus tree that's not in Greenhills, but on the way into, because it's a farmer's market type place and fresh produce. That's lovely. That's a great opportunity. So stuff like that you can just stop in on your way home would be something I'd be interested in, but it's not, unfortunately, something I can make come in.
Okay, great. Thanks for your nutshell answer. Your turn, Mr. Lee.
Progress at the shopping center is held up pretty much by the ownership of the shopping center. They tend to specialize in leasing undercapitalized businesses to come in, and unfortunately, with that turnover of business, it draws down the image of the shopping center. We are doing our level best to try to correct that, to give the shopping center a more of a positive image, but it's going to take time, especially in this time when you look at retail situations as a whole. Look at Tri-County, look at Northgate, look at Eastgate. They're all issues that all retail locations are dealing with.
Okay, and I know this is rapid fire version. It's your turn, Ms. Anwan.
I am thrilled that you asked this because recently I had the pleasure of meeting one of the newest tenants at the shopping center, and he was thrilled to see my background and that I had shopping center experience with C.B. Richard Ellis and so forth. And so he forwarded me the contact information for the owner, and we had a very wonderful conversation today. Next time he's in Cincinnati, he's going to look me up, and we're going to start putting our ducks in a row. So I'm really excited about this. The UC's DAP program did a workshop to make recommendations for the shopping center, and we're looking forward to doing that again. The tax base should be fair. we've got some wacky thing with the auditor, and I think this came about from David Moore and Catherine Brokaw going down there back in the early 2000s. Our assessments are wacky, very wacky. I went to the Board of Revision to try to get it straightened out, but this is one of the first things for the performance audit to look at. Thank you.
That's time. Thank you. I can't believe it, but we are at the end of our time. It was so fast. Also, we missed you being here, Ms. Osmanoglu, and thank you for recording your statement to be part of it. Thank you for being here, all of you in the studio. Thank you for watching. If you would like to know more information before you vote on November 2nd, you can watch all of our forums on the Waycross website, www.waycross.tv. But you can also go to the Board of Elections website. Hamilton County Board of Elections site will tell you if you are registered, you'll have a sample ballot. You can find out where your voting location, all at votehamiltoncounty.ohio.gov. Registration for this election has already ended, but early voting has already begun. So I'm Dana Gagnon, Government Programming Coordinator here at Waycross Community, and I will see you at the polls on November 2nd.